The room went quiet the second he said it. Like, dead quiet. No keyboard clicks, no phone buzzes, nothing. Just that weird silence where everyone's kinda shocked but also trying not to show it. He stood there in his worn-out jacket, holding a folded document like it was the only thing keeping him together. Dude looked tired. Not weak tired, but life has been punching me for years tired. Single dad kinda tired. And then he said it again, steady this time. Yeah, I'm the new owner. People exchanged looks like nope, no way. A couple of executives tried not to laugh, but one guy actually snorted. The receptionist froze halfway through handing someone a coffee. You could almost hear the collective thought in the room. Who does this guy think he is? At the top of the staircase, she appeared. The billionaire. Sharp suit, perfect heels, cold eyes. The kind of woman who walks into a room and instantly owns it. Because yeah, she literally does. Or, she did. She stepped down slowly, every move deliberate. This must be a joke, she said, smiling like she already knew she'd win. Security, escort him out. He didn't flinch, didn't raise his voice, didn't beg. Just unfolded the paper and placed it on the marble counter like, all right, let's do this the calm way. Check the last page, he said quietly. You'll see the signature. She rolled her eyes, like this was just another broke dude trying to hustle his way into a fantasy. She'd seen scammers, opportunists, idiots with delusions. And right now, she was sure he was one of them. But the receptionist hesitated. Her hands shook a little as she picked up the document. The legal seals looked real. The notary stamp wasn't some cheap printout. The pages were legit. So she flipped to the last one, and her face changed. Not dramatically, just enough for everyone to feel it, like something heavy had just clicked into place. The billionaire frowned. What? She said. Give it to me. She snatched the paper and scanned it fast, annoyed, confident, impatient. Then she reached the signature. She stopped. Her jaw tightened. That perfect, calm, rich person expression cracked for half a second. Because yeah, it was her father's signature. Not copied, not forged, real. The ink trails, the pressure marks, the authentication code. The old signature she hadn't seen used in years. Her stomach dropped. This isn't possible, she said. This company was never for sale. He shrugged slightly. Not smug, not dramatic, just honest. Yeah, I know. That's kinda why I'm here. The room started buzzing, whispering. Phones came out, someone started recording. Of course they did. This was the kind of drama people live for. She looked at him again, really looked this time. Rough hands, cheap shoes, that exhausted dignity. He wasn't lying, he wasn't bluffing, he wasn't even trying to impress anyone, he was just done surviving. Who are you? She asked, voice quieter now. He took a breath, like saying it meant reopening a wound. My name's Daniel, he said, single dad, mechanic, and, apparently, the guy your father trusted when he didn't trust you anymore. The whole room froze again. Her eyes narrowed. What did you just say? He held her gaze. Yeah, he said softly. Your dad gave this place to someone he believed wouldn't ruin it. And before he passed, he signed it over. To me. She laughed, but it wasn't confidence anymore. It was shaky, defensive. You're lying. Then prove it, he replied. Because if you run that signature, the real database, the private one your lawyers use, you'll see the transfer. Her pulse spiked. Because she knew that system existed. And suddenly, this wasn't funny anymore. He looked around like he didn't even want to be there. Like this wasn't victory. It was responsibility he never asked for. I don't want to fight, he said quietly. But I'm not walking away either. Not this time. The billionaire swallowed. And for the first time in years, she wasn't sure she was still in control. Before we continue the story, let me know in the comments how you liked it and where you're watching from. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to subscribe. And share a real incident from your own life that relates to this story. The comment with the most likes will be turned into the next story. They took him to the conference room. The big one with the glass walls and the stupidly long table that nobody ever actually filled. The billionaire walked ahead, heels hitting the floor like she was trying to remind everyone she still owned the place. Or maybe she was trying to remind herself. Daniel followed behind her, quiet, steady, like a guy who didn't want to be here but didn't have a choice anymore. A security guard stayed close, just in case. Not because Daniel looked dangerous, more because nobody understood what the hell was going on. The legal team rushed in like they'd been summoned from some underground vault. 2 corporate lawyers, 1 compliance guy, and the company's CFO, the kind of guy who always looked stressed even when nothing was happening. The billionaire dropped the paperwork on the table. "Run it," she said. "Use the private archive. Full authentication." The lawyers exchanged a look like, this better be a prank. But they plugged in the code from the last page anyway. The compliance guy typed fast, like dude was trying to beat fate with keystrokes. No one spoke. Daniel stood there with his hands in his pockets, staring at the floor like he was reliving something he didn't want to remember. Finally, the system beeped. Green screen, verified seal, transfer recorded, final, irreversible. The CFO blinked. "Oh my God." One of the lawyers swallowed hard. "It's real." Silence again, heavy this time. No shock, just impact. She gripped the table. "When?" The compliance guy scrolled. 3 weeks before your father passed. The document was stored offline and legally sealed. Witnessed, private key signature. Everything checks out. Her throat tightened. 3 weeks before he died. 3 weeks when she barely visited him because she was busy fixing the company. Daniel finally spoke. "He called me," he said quietly. "Said he wanted to talk. I thought it was about fixing his car again, but nope. He just wanted to see me. Said he trusted the way I looked after things, the way I looked after people." The billionaire scoffed, but it sounded tired. "He barely even knew you." Daniel nodded a little. "Yeah, that's what I thought too." He looked up now, eyes steady, but yeah, full of history. "I used to work maintenance at one of your plants, back when the company still felt human. Your dad came by a lot. He'd sit with us, talk, ask about our kids. He knew my son was sick back then, knew I was taking extra shifts." The CFO looked uncomfortable. Daniel continued. "One night there was this gas leak issue. Faulty valve, wrong batch, whatever. Everyone freaked out, people wanted to bail. But I stayed, shut the line down myself. If that thing went wrong, people would have died." He shrugged like it wasn't a big deal. "Your dad never forgot that." She clenched her jaw. "So he rewarded you by giving away my company?" "Not your company," Daniel said softly. "His, and he didn't give it to me. He trusted me to protect it. He said he was tired of watching it turn into something he didn't recognize." The room got colder. She stared at him, hurt mixing with anger. "You think you can run this? You think you know anything about corporate operations, global investments, legal structures?" "Nope," he said honestly. "I don't. I'm not pretending I do." He took a breath. "But I know what it feels like when people down here pay the price for decisions made up there. And your dad, he didn't want that anymore." The CFO rubbed his temples. "There's, one more line in the archive entry." Everyone looked at him. He scrolled, then read slowly. "Ownership transfer conditional upon moral stewardship and the preservation of workforce dignity." Yeah. The billionaire's eyes softened for half a second. Just enough to reveal something human underneath all that armor. Her father hadn't been insulting her. He'd been disappointed. Daniel looked around. "I don't want to destroy this place. I don't want to fire anyone. I don't want revenge or money or power. I just wanted to stop hurting people like me." He paused. "And honestly, I'd rather not do this alone." That last line hit differently. He wasn't pushing her out. He was inviting her in, which somehow made it worse. She swallowed hard, trying to hold her composure. "Give me a minute," she whispered, then walked out before anyone could see her eyes watering. Daniel stood there, feeling like the room was heavier than the entire world. This wasn't victory. This was responsibility. And yeah, it terrified him. She didn't cry in the hallway, not because she didn't want to, but because she didn't know how anymore. Billionaires don't get the luxury of crying in public. They get PR statements, legal shields, and therapy they never have time for. She leaned against the wall, breathing slow, like she was trying to reset her entire life in 10 seconds. Daniel stayed in the conference room. He could have sat down, but he didn't. He just stood there, hands in his pockets again, like a guy who never really felt like he belonged in rooms like this. After a minute, she came back. Her eyes were calm now, not cold, just controlled. The kind of look you see on someone deciding whether to fight or accept reality. "Everyone out," she said. The lawyers and CFO hesitated, like kids waiting for a teacher to say, "Just kidding." But nope, she meant it. They left. Glass doors closed. Silence. She walked to the end of the table, but instead of sitting far away like some power move, she pulled out the chair across from him and sat down. Close, level. "All right," she said quietly. "Talk to me. No audience, no drama, just the truth." Daniel nodded. "My son," he said. "He's 12. Name's Ethan. His mom left when he was a baby. It's just been me since then. And yeah, life hasn't exactly been kind." She didn't interrupt, didn't roll her eyes, didn't correct him. She just listened. "I worked double shifts, triple sometimes. Slept in my car a few nights when rent didn't line up. Your dad," he found out, "not because I complained. He just noticed. He was that kind of guy." A small, involuntary smile tugged at her mouth. "Yeah, that sounded like him." "One day," Daniel continued, "he calls me into his office. Me, a maintenance guy. I figured I was in trouble. But nope, he sits me down, asks about my kid, asks about my life. Then he says something I never forgot." He paused. He said, "People with everything forget what it cost others to build it." Her eyes dropped to the table. "After that, he'd check in sometimes," Daniel said. "Not a lot. Not like friends or anything. Just enough to remind me someone up there still gave a damn." He looks straight at her now, and then, right before he passed, he tells me he's scared, not of dying, but of what the company was turning into. He said he didn't trust the board, didn't trust the people whispering in your ear. Said you were smart, but surrounded by sharks. Her jaw tightened. He wasn't attacking her. He was describing something she already knew. "He told me," Daniel said slowly, "that power without empathy becomes punishment. And he didn't want to leave behind a company that punished people who couldn't afford mistakes." He swallowed. "So yeah, he signed it over. Said if I ever felt a place was losing its soul completely, I should step in. Not to own it like a trophy, but to protect it." She leaned back. "And you think you can do that?" He shrugged. "Nope, not alone. I'm not a CEO. I'm not pretending to be. But I know what the ground floor feels like, and your dad thought that mattered." She stared at him for a long moment. Then she said something he didn't expect. "He never told me." Daniel nodded softly. "Yeah, I figured." Her voice cracked, just slightly. "I spent my whole life trying to prove I could run this place. I fought the board. I fought investors. I fought everyone who said a woman couldn't handle a company this size. And while I was busy proving myself, he thought I'd lost the part of me that cared." Daniel shook his head. "No, he didn't think you lost it. He thought you were drowning in people who didn't want you to use it." That hit hard. She stared at the table, blinking slowly. "So what now?" she asked. "You push me out? Replace me? Wear the crown?" He laughed softly. "Lady, I don't even want the crown." He leaned forward. "I'm saying we do this together. You know the world up here. I know the world down there. Your dad didn't want me to take your life away. He wanted me to stop it from becoming something neither of us could live with." She didn't answer right away. But for the first time, she didn't see him as an intruder. She saw him as a mirror her world never gave her. And yeah, that scared her more than losing the company. The board wasn't going to take any of this quietly, and yeah, everyone knew it. By the time they walked back into the main hall, the rumor had already spread through the building like wildfire. Executives were whispering in corners. Assistants were pretending to type while actually listening. Security stood around like they weren't sure if this was a takeover or a soap opera. The board members were already gathered in the big meeting room. Old money, sharp suits, practiced smiles. The kind of people who could ruin a life without raising their voice. The chairman leaned back in his chair, fake calm. "So," he said, "are we finally done entertaining whatever this is?" The billionaire, no hesitation, replied, "No, we're not done. We verified the document. It's real." A couple of them laughed, but it wasn't the funny kind. More like, "Oh, look, a problem we're going to crush." The chairman looked at Daniel like he was gum stuck to a shoe. "You're a mechanic," he said flatly. "You don't belong in this conversation." Daniel shrugged a little. "Yeah, I kind of figured you'd say something like that." The legal counsel slid forward. "The transfer might be valid on paper," he said carefully, "but corporate control requires board recognition. We're not obligated to acknowledge him." The billionaire cut in, voice sharper now. "Actually, you are. My father included stewardship clauses. That makes this not just ownership, but a mandate tied to company ethics. They didn't like that word. Ethics made them itch." One board member scoffed. "What ethics? We deliver shareholder value. That's our job." Daniel looked at him. "Yeah. And how's that working out for the people who actually make the company run?" The guy rolled his eyes. "Spare us the sob story." The billionaire suddenly snapped. "Enough." The room froze. Her voice wasn't loud, just controlled, firm, like a blade. "For years," she said, "I trusted you. I believed you had this company's best interests in mind. And while you were maximizing value, we closed plants without notice, cut safety budgets, outsourced whole departments and called it efficiency. Nobody denied it because, yeah, it was true." She turned to Daniel. "Tell them what happened in the plant," she said. Daniel didn't want to do the speech thing, but he did anyway. Workers were told to finish shifts with faulty equipment because shutdowns cost too much. Guys were breathing chemicals, lifting broken machinery, getting hurt, fired for being unproductive. And when someone complained, they disappeared from the schedule. Someone at the table shifted uncomfortably. The chairman smirked. "You're emotional. You don't understand global economics." Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah, maybe, but I understand something you don't." He leaned forward. "If your numbers look good while your people are breaking, then those numbers are lying." Silence. And for a second, they didn't know how to respond. The billionaire crossed her arms. "My father chose him because he didn't want this place run by people who only see spreadsheets. He wanted someone who still remembers this company was built by humans, not investment formulas." The chairman scoffed. "So what, you want us to hand him the keys? Let a factory worker control a billion-dollar enterprise?" Daniel shook his head. "Nope, I don't want control." He looked around slowly. "I want accountability," one of the younger board members whispered. "What does that even mean?" Daniel took a breath. "It means I don't remove you. I don't take your jobs. But if decisions put workers at risk, I override them. If you cut corners that hurt families, I step in." That's the stewardship clause. The compliance officer confirmed it quietly. Legally, he's right. The boardroom went cold. The billionaire watched their faces. Shock, anger, panic, ego all mixing together. For the first time, they weren't afraid of losing money. They were afraid of losing control. The chairman forced a smile. "You won't last a week." Daniel didn't flinch. "Maybe," he said, "but I'm still here today." And yeah, that was enough to shake the room. The meeting ended like a storm that didn't know how to shut itself off. People left the room in clusters, whispering, texting, pretending everything was fine while their faces said, "Nope, nothing about this is fine." Daniel didn't stay behind to celebrate or argue. He just walked out, straight down the hallway, like a guy who needed air more than anything. The billionaire followed a few steps behind, not saying anything yet, just watching him, trying to read the way he carried the weight of all this. They stepped into the elevator. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then she finally said, "You know they're not just going to accept this, right? They're going to push back." "Hard." Daniel gave a tired half smile. "Yeah, kinda noticed that." She sighed. "We should talk strategy." He shook his head slightly. "Nope, not yet." She frowned. "Then what are you doing?" He looked at the floor numbers climbing past. "Going where it actually matters." The elevator doors opened, not to the executive floor, but to the factory level. Noise, machinery, metal, footsteps, real work being done by real people with real hands. Everyone stared when they saw him walking through with her beside him. Yeah, rumors travel fast. Some workers looked confused, some curious, some skeptical, and some kinda hopeful, but scared to admit it. Daniel spotted a guy near one of the older machines, mid-40s, wearing a brace on his wrist while still lifting parts like he didn't have a choice. Daniel stopped. "How long's your wrist been like that?" he asked. The guy hesitated, then shrugged. "Couple weeks. Doctor says I should take time off. Supervisor says production quota doesn't stop for doctor's notes." Daniel felt something burn in his chest. He looked at the nearest line manager. "That true?" The manager swallowed. We're under pressure to meet output this quarter. If we shut this station down." "Nope," Daniel cut him off. "Shut it down anyway." Everyone went quiet. The billionaire blinked. "You're closing a full line?" "Yep," Daniel said calmly, "until safety clears it." "And he pointed to the injured worker, "goes home. With full pay." The worker stared at him like he didn't believe what he just heard. The manager panicked. "You can't make that call. Production will—" Daniel turned to the billionaire. "You backing this or not?" She paused. Long second. Then she nodded. "Back it." The manager looked like he'd swallowed a brick. People around them started murmuring, not gossip murmuring this time. More like, "Is this actually happening?" The injured worker's eyes watered. He tried to hold it in. "Sir, I've got a kid in school. If I miss more days." Daniel shook his head. "You're not missing anything. Go home, heal, come back when your wrist isn't screaming at you every morning." The guy nodded slowly, like the world had suddenly gotten lighter. He walked away, and yeah, everyone saw it. Everyone felt it. For the first time in years, someone up top chose a person over a number. The billionaire watched Daniel silently, not judging, not resisting, just thinking. Because this wasn't dramatic, wasn't loud, it was just right. And somehow that made it powerful. They kept walking. Daniel looked around, really seeing everything. The worn-down safety tape, the overused equipment, the tired backs pretending they weren't tired. He wasn't some savior dude. He wasn't pretending to be. He was just a guy who had lived this life, and finally had the power to change parts of it. He stopped at the exit door and took a breath. "This is what your dad was scared of," he said softly. "A company so focused on winning, it forgot how not to hurt the people holding it up." She didn't argue this time, because yeah, deep down she knew he was right. But right there, standing between the boardroom and the factory floor, she also knew something else. If he kept doing things like this, the board wasn't just going to fight him. They were going to go to war. The war didn't take long to show up. It never does in places like this. By the next morning, emails were flying around like angry bees. Legal drafts, performance reports, urgent meeting requests. The board moved fast, not loud, not dramatic, just cold and strategic. Daniel walked into the building with a coffee that tasted like stress. He hadn't slept much. Ethan had fallen asleep on the couch with his backpack still on, and Daniel spent half the night staring at him, wondering what the hell he'd just dragged both of them into. When he stepped into the lobby, the billionaire was already there, arms crossed, jaw tense. "They filed something," she said. "Yeah?" he asked. "What kind of something?" She handed him a printed document. "Motion to suspend stewardship authority pending review." He skimmed it. Translation: slow him down, tie his hands, bury him in procedure. Daniel sighed. Knew they'd try something like this. She nodded. They're calling your decision yesterday reckless operational interference. They're saying if production targets slip, investors could panic. He smirked a little. Yeah. Heaven forbid a guy not break his wrist to keep a quarterly chart happy. She didn't laugh, because this wasn't funny anymore. They headed to the conference room. The board was already seated, calm, polished, pretending this was just business. The chairman smiled politely. Mr. Daniels, Miss Harrington, please sit. Daniel didn't sit. Let's skip the politeness, he said. You're mad I shut down a line for safety, say it straight. The chairman folded his hands. We're concerned about precedent. If every injury leads to shutdowns. Daniel cut him off. Nope, not every injury. Preventable ones. There's a difference. Another board member leaned forward. You lack the experience to understand when something is preventable. That's why operational control should remain with us. The billionaire spoke before Daniel could. Except it hasn't been under control, she said. We've had 12 safety complaints in the last 2 quarters alone. Ignored, deferred, labeled non-critical. They didn't like that being said out loud. Daniel placed a folder on the table. Those complaints, he said, I found the guys who filed them, I talked to them, and yeah, you buried every single one. The room stiffened. The compliance officer scanned the papers, throat tightening. These are real. The chairman's smile faded. We're not here to debate emotions, he said. We're here to determine whether Mr. Daniels' authority should be limited to advisory capacity. Daniel tapped the contract. Then you didn't read the clause right. I'm not an advisor. I'm the failsafe your founder built when he realized you'd stopped listening. Silence. His words didn't shout. They landed. Hard. A senior board member exhaled slowly. Fine. Let's be blunt, he said. You're a liability. Investors don't like uncertainty. They're already asking questions. Stock reacts to fear, not ethics. Daniel shrugged. Then maybe tell investors the truth. The company won't build profit on broken bones anymore. The room bristled, and then the billionaire did something nobody expected. She slid a document forward. I co-sign his decision, she said. Officially. On record. Executive authority plus stewardship alignment. If you challenge him, you challenge me. The chairman stared at her. You're siding with him over your own board? She didn't blink. I'm siding with my father. That hit like a hammer. The board whispered among themselves, annoyed, rattled, scrambling behind calm faces. The chairman leaned back. Very well, he said. But understand this. If production numbers drop, if revenue dips, if even one investor demands answers. He looked straight at Daniel. We hold you responsible. Daniel nodded. Yeah, he said quietly. I kind of figured that was coming. He turned to leave. But before he stepped out, he said one more thing. You've been protecting numbers for years. Someone needs to protect people for a change. If that makes me the bad guy in your world. He shrugged. Guess I'll live with that. The door closed behind him. The billionaire followed, heart pounding. Not from fear, but because for the first time in a long time, she wasn't ashamed of how this company was being run. She was scared, but yeah, she was also proud. The storm didn't hit all at once. It came in waves. First came the emails from department heads, polite, corporate, full of concerns and impact assessments. Then came the rumors, investors calling, analysts whispering, articles hinting at internal instability. Yeah. The machine was pushing back. Daniel spent the afternoon walking the floor again, not for drama, not to prove a point, just to see, to understand what he was fighting for. Workers nodded at him now, not fanboy respect, more like cautious trust. The kind of look people give when they want to believe something good but are scared it won't last. His phone buzzed. A message from the billionaire. Come to my office, now. So he went. Her office didn't look like a billionaire's office that day. Papers everywhere, screens full of graphs, phone blinking nonstop. She stood by the window, arms crossed tight, breathing like she'd just run up a hill. They're doing it, she said quietly. They're pulling money. Daniel raised a brow. Investors? She nodded. Some of them, not a lot, but enough to make noise. And the board, they're framing you as the reason. He sighed. Yeah, figures. She turned to him, eyes sharper now but not angry at him. Angry at them. They want me to publicly distance myself from you. He didn't even flinch. Yeah, he said. I kinda expected that too. She studied his face. You're not surprised by anything, are you? He shrugged a little. When you've worked paycheck to paycheck your whole life, you stop expecting fairness. Silence for a moment. Not awkward, just heavy. She walked to the desk and opened a folder. Here, she said, internal memo draft. They want to spin yesterday's shutdown as procedural miscommunication and position you as an external consultant with limited authority. Translation, strip him of power without firing him. He didn't touch the paper. So what are you going to do? He asked. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she said something else. You know what the board sees when they look at you? He smirked. Yeah, a problem. No, she said. A reminder. He frowned. Reminder of what? That the company was never supposed to look like this. Yeah, that one hit. She took a breath. If I back you publicly, we both take the hit. My position weakens. Shares drop harder. Media spins this into a circus. And if it goes bad enough, she hesitated. They could force me out too. Daniel nodded slowly. Then don't, he said. Don't burn your life for me. She looked at him, confused. You're telling me to step back? Nope, he said. I'm telling you to choose what you can live with. He leaned against the desk. Look, I'm just a guy who's been tired for a long time. If they kick me out tomorrow, I go back to fixing engines and figuring out how to pay school fees. I'll survive. That's kind of what I do. His voice softened. But you, this place, it's your life, your name, your history. If standing with me costs you everything, I don't want that on my conscience. She stared at him for a long time. Most people who stood next to power wanted something. Advantage, recognition, leverage. He was the only one she'd met who didn't. And that, yeah, messed with her head. Then she said quietly, my father never trusted anyone as much as he trusted you. But I'm realizing something. He raised a brow. What's that? She swallowed. He never expected you to fix the company alone. He blinked. What? He expected you to change me. That landed like a punch to the chest. Not painful, just real. She picked up the memo, took a pen, crossed a line clean through it. Then she looked at him, steady, unapologetic. I'm backing you, publicly, fully. If they want war, she exhaled, then fine. We fight. Daniel closed his eyes for a second. Not victory, just relief that he wasn't alone. But yeah, as soon as the statement went out, the boardroom wasn't just angry anymore. They were dangerous. And the real fight? Yeah, it was about to start. The statement went live at noon. No fancy PR fluff, no watered-down corporate language, just straight-up truth. Safety and dignity are not negotiable. This company will not sacrifice people for profit. Decisions made under the stewardship clause are supported by executive leadership. Signed by her. Co-signed by Daniel. Yeah, that lit the fuse. Within an hour, analysts were screaming on finance blogs. Stock phones rang nonstop. Half the board lost their minds, the other half pretended they weren't losing their minds. The chairman called an emergency vote. Not about policy, about removing both of them. Daniel stood in the back of the room while lawyers shuffled papers like nervous birds. The billionaire sat at the table, calm-looking on the outside, but her fingers tapped like her nerves had nowhere else to go. The chairman cleared his throat. Before we proceed, is there anything either of you would like to say? Daniel didn't move, but she did. She leaned forward, voice steady. For years, she said, I believed that running a company meant keeping investors happy first. That stability mattered more than discomfort, more than conscience. She glanced toward Daniel. I was wrong. The room shifted, not dramatically, just uncomfortable. This company used to stand for something, she said. Responsibility, community. People who built it with their hands and trusted us not to treat them like disposable parts. Somewhere along the way we stopped caring. And my father saw it before I did. Her voice didn't crack. But yeah, it came close. So yes, she continued, I stand with stewardship. I stand with safety. I stand with fixing what we broke. If that cost me my position, then fine. I'd rather leave with a conscience than stay with a lie. The boardroom went silent. No one expected that. Not from her. The chairman turned to Daniel. And you? Any last words before we vote? Daniel sighed. Yeah, just one thing. He didn't walk to the front. He just spoke from where he stood. I never wanted this, he said. I didn't wake up one day thinking, hey, I'd love to wrestle billion-dollar egos for fun. I came here because a man I respected trusted me to step in when everyone else forgot what mattered. He paused, and honestly, I'm still that same dude trying to make sure some guy with a busted wrist doesn't lose his job over a spreadsheet. He shrugged. If that makes me a problem, then I guess I'm a problem. No drama, no hero speech, just truth. The vote started, hands raised, names recorded, and for a minute, it felt like the world was holding its breath. Then the compliance officer read the results. Motion to remove fails, barely. One vote, one single terrified board member who couldn't quite bring themselves to pull the trigger. The chairman looked like he'd swallowed glass. This isn't over, he said coldly. Daniel nodded. Yeah, he replied. Kinda figured. The meeting adjourned. People scattered, lawyers whispered. Corporate tension hung in the air like static. Outside the room, Daniel leaned against the wall, finally letting the exhaustion catch up to him. His hands shook a little, not fear, just everything. The billionaire walked out a moment later. For a second, they didn't say anything. Then she laughed softly, tired, raw, real. We survived, he smirked. For now. She nodded. Yeah, for now. They stood there in the quiet hallway, two people from completely different worlds who somehow ended up on the same side of the same line. She looked at him. So, what do we do next? He took a breath. Simple, he said. We fix it, one decision at a time. No shortcuts, no pretending. She smiled, small but honest. Good, she said. Because I'm not backing out. He nodded. Yeah, me neither. Down on the factory floor, machines hummed, people worked. But for the first time in years, they didn't feel invisible. They felt seen, protected. And maybe, just maybe, like the company finally remembered who it belonged to. Not the richest people in the building, but the ones who kept it alive.